someone was talking about radon gas during last week, about radon gas leaking into the house, because radon gas is natural. Radioactive.
Well, that's an interesting one. I don't know how many remember the problem with radon gas in Port Hope, but of course the El Dorado was operating in Port Hope, and so Port Hope was a bad spot, and they were having problems selling property there and everything else, and Port Hope was polluted with radon, and it so happened that on the press, both the local press and and the not so local press were making big bucks out of it too. And somebody made a discovery that most of the houses in the whole country had radon gas in them. When they went to check them against the ones in Port Hope, the ones in Port Hope that they were doing all the complaining about were pretty good. They only knew about it because somebody got scared by El Dorado, and they thought they should check them out. And the net result was that all of a sudden, all the bad press stopped instantly. There was no more bad press. Everything was gone, and everything came back to normal, all except for their dump at Fort Granby. And I had a friend that was a nuclear physicist, and he said the thing at Fort Granby wasn't causing any problem at all. You went by there were no signs of any mutations. The birds were singing, the plants were growing, and the bugs were biting, and everything was normally said. The radiation level was so low it wasn't hurting anything. But they spent, I don't know, billions of dollars moving it because the local people there hollered.
Yeah, they have what's called the Port Hope Initiative, where they're cleaning up and removing the soil and putting it in a space, and you can have your house certified. You had to have it in by a certain date, and you'll get a certification that your property's been cleaned up.
How do you folks feel about, you have a nuclear power station down in your way, don't you?
Two of them.
Okay, do you feel comfortable with that nuclear?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
No problem at all.
Yep.
We have
I've
moved.
Easier to
done-
see at night.
Pardon?
I've done 2
It's easier
seminars.
to see at night from the glow.
Well,
I've
does
done-
that mean you don't need street lighting because you've got the glow
Yeah.
coming out of the plant?
Farley Mowat got in trouble years ago. Didn't he make a joke about how they use Port Hope as a beacon when they're flying into Toronto?
Well, that's when they were all excited about the radon gas.
Yeah.
But I've done 2 seminars in nuclear energy at up in Ottawa River at Deep River, and nobody. You don't have to be scared of my memory on things is getting bad on our nuclear generating system, because if you have an explosion there, it's not going to be a nuclear explosion. If you ever had an explosion, it would be a steam explosion. They can shut the reactors off there in a fraction of a second.
So does that mean
Completely
you could
off.
never have a Chernobyl?
Pardon?
Does that mean that in your area you would not have a Chernobyl?
Oh, but that was a different system. But also, in the big one in the States there that they made all the fuss about, the 3 Mile one, when it was over, if a person had been outside the fence for the full year that they were having the problem, they would have received as much radiation as, I think it was 2 or 3 chest x-rays if they were right outside the fence. But their system, they were using a cheaper system, and the Chernobyl one was too. And the Canadian system was more expensive, but far better, and it's proved that way. But they got a great big tank underneath the reactors, and all they've got to do to shut them down is to dump the heavy water out of the reactors, and they shut down immediately. And then on top of that, if they want something else, they can shove carbon rods in between the fuel cells in the reactors, and that will shut them down. And if they want a third one, they can put some arsenic in, and that'll kill it. So there's no there, but they run steam at about 700 pounds a square or 800 pounds a square inch. And if something happened to one of those boilers and they lost the steam pressure instantly, they'd have an expansion of 2,000 times of all the water that was in there, and that would produce a pretty dramatic explosion. So if there's anything dangerous, it's the steam. And you got that regardless of what you use for heat.
I was at an excellent presentation at the UIT when they had the Fukuyama disaster. The UIT put on a panel discussion. It was very interesting. They were talking about how safe it was. And during the presentation, one of the presenters said, he says, I have to ask a question here. And he says, don't react if you don't want to. But he says, I happen to know that there's somebody in this audience that I very much admire. And if that person would consent to be identified, I would really appreciate it. Well, it turned out it was a retired, very senior expert. And they asked him if he would mind giving a few words. And it was quite interesting because he started off by saying, I'm retired, I can say things how it is. And he says, it's nuclear far safer. He says, you heard all about Fukuyama, but at the same time, there was an oil refinery that blew up. And he says, no, you never heard anything about that. You never hear anything about the pollution and the accidents caused by that. It was really quite interesting. He really laid on the line and talked about how safe our system was. Now, obviously, he had a vested interest, even though he's retired. But it was interesting just to hear it from somebody that really knew their stuff.